Hey guys, Micah from blackbearcustomkydex. I've got a video for you today on a couple of sheaths that I just made for my client Katanga. And he sent me some really cool knives. I've actually never worked with either of these specific knives, although I've done one for a very similar knife to this. You guys probably recognize the handle on this one because it's just very iconic to the company. But this is from Half Face Blades. You can see their logo right there. If it's coming up on the camera. I can't quite see the screen. I'm at an angle, so hopefully that's showing up well. But just gorgeous, gorgeous craftsmanship. I really have loved all the half-face blades that have come through the shop. They're very unique. They seem to be very high quality. I've never owned one or had a chance to use one, but if you have, why don't you comment down below? Let me know your thoughts on this company and the quality of their product. So far, from what little I've seen, not having used one, but having handled quite a few now coming through the shop, I gotta say, 2 thumbs up. I really like these. So there's this, and I apologize. I actually don't know the maker on this one. Somebody who knows maker's marks, can tell me what we're looking at there. I don't recognize the logo, but I also really like this. It's just beautiful, especially the handle, this like really gnarly burl, whatever wood that is. It's really cool. All right, so looking at the knives first. I'm not going to review them because that's not what I do on this channel, and you can probably find better information on these elsewhere. But from a sheath maker perspective, specifically thermoplastics like Kydex, Boltaron, etc. There's like one other, and I can't think of the name of it right now. Oh, it's going to drive me crazy. Oh, man. Well, whatever. So, obviously, both of these have some kind of recurve on them. They both also have a little bit of what we would call like a harpoon shape on the spine, although on the half face, that's quite a bit farther up toward the handle than on the chopper here. So, those contours actually cause significant issues when it comes to making a Kydex sheath. The reason is because whenever you have a part closer to the tip that is wider than any part toward the handle, you have an issue of tight spots. If I were just to press the sheath directly over what you're looking at here, it would form into this little crook here, and then this point would have a really difficult time passing through the Kydex. In addition, particularly when you're looking at something like this, where you do have this really narrow section here along the belly, where it's a recess, a recurve. So your widest point of the cutting edge is right here, but with this slope and this little harpoon shape here, the saddle, if you will, you have another wide point here. So it's imperative that you create some kind of what I call blocking, or what we, in the industry, I didn't come up with the term, but it's imperative that you come up with some kind of blocking to fill in all the spaces behind it that all this material might be traveling through as you draw your weapon out of the sheath. So really how I look at this is I've got to come up with something that creates a straight line from here backward, as well as from here backward, and really that's going to make 2 parallel lines, or if anything, I would flare them outward closer to the handle so that there's just plenty of clearance, guaranteed clearance. So looking at this sheath here, if you look at this, you'd have no idea that there's a recurve on the blade. You can see it's a nice clean line down here, and obviously you can see this bump right there, which is where the well, all right, somebody who knows more about knife anatomy, tell me this. I know a couple knife makers follow me anyway. Is this considered a plunge grind as well? I know obviously this is the plunge grind from the ricasso to the cutting edge, but what about with a swedge? Would that also be considered a plunge grind? I don't know. In any case, you can see where the plunge grind is, I'll call it that, where the swedge starts anyway, at the top, the spine of the knife, but behind that you see nothing, and there's no contour change going back. Likewise, behind the bottom of the ricasso at this choil here, you can't tell. It almost looks like the knife was wider than that going forward. So the reason I block everything really meticulously like that is so that there's absolutely nothing impeding that blade from moving in or out of the sheath. Now if I could just draw it appropriately. There we go. So you can see, totally free to move in and out, which is what you want. So now, the other trick with it is when you block it out, you also want to leave enough enough of a gap behind any points of retention for the sheath to mold in so that it actually holds onto your knife. You're hearing some of the hardware rattling around here on this baldric sling, the duffel clips, but here we go. Now let me pin this down too. But the knife itself is not moving, it doesn't rattle, there's no play. And same time, when you want it, you just grip your knife, you can get your forefinger up there pretty far and give a good push with the thumb ramp. And it sails right off. It's very clean. This is what I call a ballistic draw. So I'm very pleased with how this came out, and this is kind of the this is what I aim for. I don't want to call it necessarily perfection or anything, but it's kind of what I aim for anytime I do a sheath. I want it to have secure retention, no rattle, no play, and that ballistic draw. All right, so other features on this. Obviously, we're looking at leather over Kydex, so you can't actually see the Kydex as you're looking at the sides of it like this. But if you look at the edge, you can see that this is in OD green Kydex. He requested, based on another build that I'd done for, what was it, a Tops Operator 7, I think, where it was red Kydex with black leather over it. And he wanted OD green Kydex with black leather. I think it looks really nice, especially with this handle that's beautiful. Again, this has got to be some kind of burl. I don't know what exactly, but that with these black liners, I think it all just kind of ties together really nicely. I love the combination of the colors we're getting here. So there we go. All right, now the other one, same kind of thing. Leather over Kydex. This one was black Kydex with black leather on it. And you can see some other carry setups here. Also, both sheaths have 6 milled slots in them. So milled slots are really useful. They can be, I would say they're the cons list is much shorter than the pros list for milled slots. If you are thinking about getting milled slots, I'd recommend only really considering it on a pancake style sheath. Why? Because if you have a taco style sheath, it's going to be folded over the spine rather than having two pieces with rivets on both sides. And if that's the case, you're really only going to be able to put milled slots along one edge of it, in which case it also becomes significantly less useful. Could you still do something like a leg strap with a taco style sheath? Yeah, absolutely. I've done that quite a bit, especially in the I'd say the last year or two. I've done a lot more leg strap setups, drop leg, like a dangler with a leg strap. But the utility of having the milled slots be not only on both sides, but be parallel to one another, symmetrical, that I think opens up the possibilities for your sheath a lot more. So in some ways, pancake sheaths can be more versatile than taco style sheaths. The biggest advantage of a taco style sheath, depending on how you want it made, it can be slightly lower profile, although let's be honest, you're really only going to gain maybe a half an inch there. So it's not really all that significant. But with a taco style sheath, you can also get a very unique and signature look. So you'll probably notice if you look at a handful of the kind of top tier makers, we all have our own signature shape with taco style sheaths, whereas pancake style sheaths, almost everybody's just going to trace the shape of the blade because that makes a lot more sense than anything else. So you'll get a very similar looking sheath from a bunch of different makers as far as how it looks directly over the blade. You might get some differences in the handle area. One thing, for instance, that I do a lot that I'd say not a lot of people do. There are definitely other makers doing it. It drives me crazy when they don't do it, is a good deep finger groove here. The reason why you want that is because your natural hand position is going to be all the way up into that choil. So while I'm not making contact with the handle on the front of my forefinger because the sheath is stopping me, I can put my hand in that position, and as I draw, the finger just snaps into place. There's no readjustment necessary. So the second that is clear of the Kydex, my hand is in the right position and I'm ready to actually use the tool. How important is that? I guess you can argue that it's not terribly important. It's not likely that you're going to have to draw your knife in such a way that it's immediately ready to use and you can't take that 1 or 2 seconds to really adjust and get a better grip on your handle. But it is one of the things I think makes drawing your knife feel better. And in the unlikely event that you actually have to do something with the knife immediately, it's really nice to have that good deep finger groove. So that's just one of the few things I think is kind of lost in the art of Kydex at large. All right, now let's really quickly go over the carry options. One of the things he requested several different carry setups, and when he had listed off the stuff and told me what knives would be going for, similar size knives, not totally the same obviously, but they're both medium to large size knives. I'd say this is ever so slightly smaller than like an SE Hungless. It's about the same size as a Hungless 2, and this one is just a little bit smaller than that. I'd said, well, why not? Why don't we save a little bit of money, unless you want specifically to carry 2 knives the same way at the same time? You could just do something where I set them up to be totally interchangeable, so it's universally sized. And he liked that idea, so that's what we went with. So I've got kind of everything cobbled together here for the sake of shipping and keeping it all together, as well as for the video, so they don't forget anything or leave it out. But let's just go over them really quickly. So first off, on this larger chopper, I have a leather scout strap. This has a couple pull-the-dot snaps installed on it, so you should be able to keep this really secure on your belt with no issues as you're carrying it. And pressure from the inside of the loop cannot bust these open. Well, I'm sure there's a threshold at some point, but no normal daily use amount of pressure is going to do that to the snaps. So they have to be rolled down to close them, and they have to be lifted up from the tip to open them. They're very easy to operate, but at the same time, they're very rugged and very strong, so you don't have to worry about your gear coming off on you. Also, with the nature of how this carries, when you put that loop through the belt, it's going to be kind of hanging on your belt. So even if you do unsnap the buttons somehow, if you go to sit down for whatever reason, it snags on something just right and pops those open, it's not just going to fall out on you. It's actually going to be pretty well still stuck to you. You'll feel it jiggling, and you'll know that you have to re-snap that, but I don't anticipate any major issues. Another important feature of the Scout Loop is that you can actually detach it and flip it around. It's obviously going to be symmetrical, but to the degree that it is perfectly symmetrical, and I can tell you that because I actually programmed my Scout Loops now into a laser cutter, and I will laser cut the leather so that I get a perfect cutout. So I was able to design it in Adobe Illustrator, and then I can just scale it depending on the sheath and directly cut that out of a piece of leather with a machine. So it's a little more reliable this way than if I was doing it by hand. So I really like this. But yeah, point is, you can turn this around to the opposite side, and that just gives you a little bit of flexibility to be able to pass the side with the buttons on it through the belt to go outside if you wanted that, or inside if you wanted it. It doesn't really matter. That's why I set them up like this, so you can just have your preferences. All right, so also on this one we have a leg strap. Now the leg strap, you wouldn't carry the two of these together. Obviously, the leg strap is an accessory to a dangler, more or less. So you can carry it as a dangler, or if you add a leg strap, it's now called a drop leg carry. Now over here you have the dangler, nice leather dangler, and you also have, we got a ferro rod loop down here. Up here we have a couple of D-rings with a nice Beach and Tactical baldric sling attached, and that's that. Now, another option, just to point out, if you wanted to, you could pass the leg strap through the D-rings instead of through the milled slots. So you just attach one D-ring to the top side of the spine near the tip and the other one along the cutting edge near the tip, and you'd have the same option with the leg strap as you can see with this milled slot here. In my opinion, I honestly don't really see any advantage to either one of these. They're both totally acceptable, very utilitarian. I personally would probably go directly through the milled slots just because it'll save me 30 seconds of screwing things in place. So that's my own preference. Now, one other thing to note is that the dangler also can be attached to either side of either sheath. You guys have seen me do this a lot lately, where I put some kind of little Frankenstein bolt on the face of the sheath over the handle. On this side, you can see it as well. Well, on this one, you can tell that that's the attach point for the dangler. So really, all of these bolts are for is more or less just a placeholder so that you're not staring at the hole in the front of your sheath. So yeah, you can just cannibalize the hardware as you go, switch things around. The hardware setup that's in the dangler adapter, this piece of Kydex here right now, is the one that you're going to want to use regardless of left, right, or which knife. But that's a really easy delineation to make. So just, yeah, it's all pretty self-explanatory. But all right, well, that's all I've got for you on this project. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'm sure I'll put it in the title of the video after I reread my emails to figure out what the maker is on this knife. I really like this thing, but let me know what you guys thought of the two blades down below in the comments. Also, let me know what you think of leather over Kydex. Tell me how you like the milled slots. I got to tell you guys, milling slots is not terribly difficult to do. I do it with a router table. And just a lot of caution because it's difficult, I think, to get them to be totally straight and in line with the eyelets that are on the sheath. That's and getting them to be straight along like a curve, along this curved edge. That's also really difficult to do. But when you add leather to the mix, that just complicates things to a whole other level. So I think milling slots when you have leather is very difficult. And I'm really pleased with how these came out. But I'd love your opinions down below. That's always the most important thing to me. So, all right, guys. Let me know what you think of both these projects, all the carry setups. Let me know what you think of making them universal and interchangeable between the two. And anything else you want to share in the comments. Also, any experience with half-face blades, tell us what you think of that company. Like I said, 2 thumbs up from me so far, but I've never actually owned or used one. All right, I think that wraps it up, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Thanks for tuning in for this video, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. God bless.